So let's talk about the surface area of cylinders. So for cylinders, to get an idea of the shape, you could grab a can of beans, can of dog food, whatever you have available, and that would be your cylinder. The key is that it's made up of two circles. So we have a circle on top and there's a circle on bottom as well, if we made this kind of three-dimensional there. So that makes up surface area, is you have these two circles. And then what can be hard to visualize is thinking about how you would calculate the area along the side here, like where the label would be printed. But the key is that if you say, even if you have this label covering this can of green beans and you cut that label, what happens is if you flatten it, really, it's just a rectangle. It's rectangle wrapped around the outside, but in terms of a flat surface area, it's just covered by a rectangle. So that's what makes up our cylinder, is two circles and a rectangle. So for circles, just as a refresher, we're going to have circle area comes from the calculation of pi r squared. Then rectangle area, which we just practiced in that last video, is coming from length times width. Now, the key is though, when we have a cylinder, we're often not going to be talking about length and width. We're going to have a height to the cylinder. We'll also have some description of either diameter or radius. So that'll be given to us, the height and some information about the circle. So this height is going to relate directly to the width of the rectangle that we're dealing with. So instead of writing L times W here, I'm just going to switch that to H. So we would have our radius, we would have our height, but now this length, we need to think about this a different way, because they're not going to describe this length along the outside of the circle. However, we have a formula for that length because that relates directly to circumference. The circumference of that circle is going to be the same as the length of that rectangle. So our formula for circumference is 2 pi r. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and rewrite this calculation for rectangle area where I have L. Instead of having that just L for length, I'm going to replace that with 2 pi r. And then to make it an area of a rectangle, we would just multiply that by h. So now what we have here is we have information all in terms of being given some radius, and they might give us diameter, and we'll talk about that if they give the diameter, how to change that. But we'll have information about the radius, we'll have information about the height, and with those two pieces of information, we can find this total surface area. So this surface area is made up of two circles. So I'm going to have 2 times, and then this circle area of pi r squared. So there's our two circles, and then we're going to add on the area of this rectangle, which the length of that rectangle is going to come from the circumference, 2 pi r. And then the height of that rectangle, or width, is going to come from the height of the can. So that's our formula for surface area, which you can see down here. It comes from two circles plus a rectangle. So with that, if you don't have the formula memorized, you can break it down that way. You would need to remember your calculation for circumference as well as circle area. So let's go ahead and apply this to our can of green beans here. So they're telling us we have a height of 4 inches, radius of 2 inches. So for surface area, we're going to get 2 times pi times the radius squared, which the radius is 2. So I'm going to have 2 squared plus 2 times pi times the radius, which is 2, times the height of the can, which is 4. And with that, let's go to the calculator. So I'm going to grab my Desmos calculator, bring it over here, and just going to plug all of that in. So we're going to have 2 times, and then my pi button, times 2 squared, and then add on 2 times pi times 2 times 4. Let's make sure I type that all in. Yeah. So 75 point, let's say if I round to 2 decimal places, let's see, that 9 rounds up to a 10. So we'll have a 75.4. So 75.4. And then again, we need our units. And since this is area, we're going to have our units squared. So this is inches squared. And we're done. Let's do that with another scenario here. So here they're giving a height of 5 and a diameter of 6, which we need radius. So what we would need to do is take that 6 and divide it by 2. So the radius is 3, and we're dealing with centimeters. All right, so surface area. We're taking 2 times, and then our circles, pi r squared. So pi r squared plus, and then our rectangle, which is going to be 2 pi r times the height. And then with that, we can just plug all of that into the calculator. And what I'm even going to do is just a little sneaky editing here. Just going to change that to a 3. And let's see, a 3 and a 5. So 150.8. And then our units, we're taking centimeters squared.